Today, I want to talk about some thoughts on mastering our emotions. And to master our emotions, it doesn't mean establishing a dictatorial, kind of coercive relationship with them. It's not about pushing them down, the emotions that we dislike, and forcing the ones that we do like into our awareness. This kind of approach is ego driven and often leads to internal conflict. I think that true emotional mastery is about moving towards something which I call emotional equanimity. And emotional equanimity, it's simply a state where one's emotional space is almost detached from extreme pleasures and displeasures. It's a place of stillness where, regardless of what we are experiencing or the chaos which surrounds us, we remain in this kind of immovable center of peace. I think if we reflect on what our emotions are, as evidenced by the name emotion, they are intrinsically tied to movement. They arise to stir feelings within us which urge us to act. We think of pain. Pain encourages us to move away from that which is causing the pain, and pleasure tends to move us towards um, whatever is causing the pleasure, whatever is driving it, so we can have more of it. And emotions are really a form of bodily intelligence. They're essential and intuitive to our bodily existence. And when we reflect upon them, we should think of them as guides, essentially, but not as something to enslave us. We shouldn't let them rule our lives, but we should give them space, allow them to be heard without giving them, undue control. You see, when we're unbalanced and easily consumed by our emotions, we tend to act recklessly. Take anger for instance. Unchecked anger, it clouds our judgment, pushing us to say or do things that we may later regret. Yet, I wouldn't say that anger is inherently bad. Anger, when in response to true injustice, is natural, and I think the optimal response at times. And while righteous anger in response to some kind of moral failure, um, whilst it can inspire us to act, it should be channeled wisely, and we shouldn't be dictated by it. We need to understand our emotions, and through this understanding, gain a kind of control and capacity to channel them, you know, letting our higher awareness sort of direct our response rather than allowing the emotion itself to take full control. So, in essence, our relationship with our emotions should be one of listening and guidance, but not captivity. We should aim for a state where we are aware of our emotions, but they do not control us. And this requires a clarity of awareness. And to sort of elaborate on this point, there's a concept from certain shamanic traditions called stalking yourself. And as the name suggests, you are stalking yourself and you're observing religiously the rhythms and tendencies of your mind, how you react to things, what triggers certain emotions, and where your mind has a tendency to wander. And if you cultivate this practice of stalking yourself, of the repeated application of awareness to your mental affairs, you will gain insight into who you are and your various emotional tendencies. And to think about this, you should ask yourself, do I have a tendency to ignore my emotions, particularly the negative ones? Do I have a tendency to distract myself rather than face certain feelings? Or do I engage excessively with my emotions to the point of fueling them beyond what they are necessarily need to be? I think some people, they find a strange pleasure in the high arousal states of anger or outrage, and this intense state can be almost addictive, feeding a cycle of drama that drains their energy. Think about it. When you're around someone who is this, seems like they've always got some kind of drama or some kind of highly emotional experience in their life, they're exhausting to be around. And in contrast, if you're around someone who is emotionally tranquil, emotionally steady, they radiate a kind of calmness and stillness that is, it dissipates into everyone around them. It's very, very nice to be in the presence of such people. And I think this speaks to the importance, not just to yourself, but for people around you, for your social networks, for your families, the importance, the service of being able to heal and understand your emotions. So I think now we should think about, what does this state of emotional equanimity feel like? And like I said, it's a deep contentment and a deep detachment from our fleeting sensations. It's not an ignoring of our emotions, as the name detachment can be misinterpreted to imply, but really it's a detached allowing of their natural processes. It's an allowing of them to come and go without getting attached, without clinging to them. And when you cultivate this sort of detached awareness, your negative thoughts, they will have a tendency not to startle or grip you as tightly. They will simply arise and fade. All things pass. And as you cultivate this center of being your awareness and not clinging, not becoming attached to your thoughts, you will continually remind yourself that, oh, I am not my thoughts. Instead, I am the spacious, empty awareness in which thoughts arise, like the sound arising from a guitar string. A string, it vibrates and it emits, sound as the vibrations of that. And, we think that we are the emitting sound, but no, you're the string. You're the vibrating string. And, we should really think about this, because just think about, where do you go in between thoughts? We think we become so identified with our thoughts, but it makes no sense, because you don't disappear in between each thought. No, you are the silence. You are the deep, still silence, right? And thoughts, they are just kind of little ripples. They are ripples within you, but they do not define you. And so really, this question of cultivating peace, of cultivating emotional equanimity, it's deeply tied to the question of our identity and, the weight of importance that we give to our thoughts, the extent to which we identify with them. And, our thoughts, they do shape our reality. And this can be positive or this can be negative. But I think that this effort of practicing awareness and detachment from our thoughts, we can eventually move towards a healthier and more peaceful state of being. And this involves challenging our negative thoughts and nurturing our positive ones, such as gratitude and joy. And if we think about it, as human beings, as evolved organisms, we naturally have a tendency to focus on the negative, and this is a survival instinct to detect threats. And this obviously sets us up almost to fall into these ruts of focusing on the negative. But this shouldn't, determine us. This shouldn't condemn us to an existence of focusing entirely on the negative. We can consciously choose to focus more on what is good. And this doesn't mean gaslighting yourself into ignoring the bad, but it's about holding a balanced and detached relationship with our thoughts, really. And ultimately, we are not our thoughts. We are the awareness in which they arise. And this practice of mindful detachment, which I've described, it is ultimately the path to self-understanding. It's the path to inner peace and true emotional mastery. And with that, I'll leave that there. Hope you've enjoyed. Hope it's been interesting. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Have a fantastic day. Goodbye.